What's going on, y'all? It's your girl Tanisha Peoples, live with my homeboys, my brothers Jason B. Allen and Nehemiah Frank, and we are the trio that talks that real shit every Monday. We talking when we feel like it. Today we on a little early, but we still gonna give y'all the business. As always, we have a very special guest. We have Councilman Antonio Brown of the 3rd District in Atlanta, and I'm gonna let Mr. Allen go ahead and tell us a little bit about Mr. Antonio Brown.
So, I think that Tanisha, I had Public Enemy playing in the background. I had to cut it down a little. It's one of those days. But what I would say to Antonio is that he's definitely more than just a public official, someone who was elected into office by the people, but he's in the streets working with the people. And so Neo and I both serve on the People's Uprising, which is one of the task force committees that he's created to really focus in on the topic that we're talking about today, which is reimagining public safety. And so, Antonio, you have anything else you want to add, brother, about who you are, what you do, and what the people need to know?
No, I mean, you pretty much summed it up. I'm the Atlanta City Councilman for District 3, and I've been one of the only council members that have been in front of the social justice movement we've seen in not just Atlanta, but across the country. And, I represent some of the poorest communities in all of Atlanta, the poorest Black communities in all of Atlanta. And these communities have been poor for over 4 decades.
Yeah, most def. I didn't know if that was kind of a slick read too. So on social media, this young lady tweeted over the weekend about our mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms, and of course, Killer Mike, and who I consider to be the Black elite, of course, came to her aid. And the point that was being made is that we've had Black leadership in Atlanta for almost 50 decades, and 5 decades, 50 years, and where we celebrate this as a moment in Black history or a pillar of success for the Black community in the South. Black people are still living in poverty. The Atlanta Water Boys were called to be detained by Black leadership in this city. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Like, we have to change up the political game and what we're doing, because we've been doing the just vote somebody Black because they're Black far too long. That might have been a little heavy to start off. I'm sorry, y'all, but I wanted to just shout out that young lady who started the conversation on Twitter.
We hit it hard early, and these are things that we need to talk about, especially given the fact that, Black people are suffering despite, an abundance.
Were you speaking in regards to the Twitter exchange over the weekend where the mayor made a statement that stated that Atlanta is going to be known for, I think, lemon pepper wings and strip clubs?
Strip clubs, yeah.
Damn.
It was a quote from a magazine article, I believe, that she was featured in. And you can't have it both ways. And I think that we've tried to appease the who's who of Atlanta for too long. And I mean, it's just a lot to that. It's a heavy conversation, but a lot of people are really starting to say, listen, we can't just keep electing Black people because they're Black. We need to have, people of color who are in office who have the right mindset to make changes and are going to stand by that, and who can't be bought and sold. I've talked about bought and sold politicians across the nation since we've been on the show, but another day, another dollar, right?
I'm mad at y'all internet. Forget the lemon pepper wings and the strip clubs. Like, y'all internet been janky, and that's another thing that we've been talking about. But I ain't no shade, but every guest that we have from Atlanta, y'all internet is like
it's on happened to me.
Assistance. It's on public assistance.
My day was storming, but yeah, it did happen to me.
It's on public assistance, but aside from that, I think that we need to talk about these things because, again, regardless of the fact that we have more Black representation at the city and state levels, state and federal levels, our communities are still suffering, and then we have this issue of brutality. And Neo, I know you want to sound off about both of y'all want to sound off about some other injustices that happened over the weekend. Go ahead, get it.
Yeah, like I mean, at this point in time, y'all, I think we're streaming live on the Black Wall Street Times Facebook page now. So just give me 1 second because I want to make sure that I share this to my folks that are okay. Well, anyway, let me just go ahead because we're getting some feedback. All right, so Antonio's back, which is great. But anyways, I want to talk to y'all about some bullshit that's taking place in Tulsa, Oklahoma right now. So if you heard about the Black Wall Street, or if you heard of Black Wall Street anywhere in the country, the first place that was coined the Black Wall Street was Tulsa, Oklahoma. And that was actually coined by Booker T. Washington himself. He drove down Greenwood Avenue, which is where I'm from, right? That's my community. My family goes back 5 generations. When the massacre took place in 1921, it was my great-great-grandparents that were running and fleeing for their lives with the other Black folks that were in that city. Have you seen the TV show The Watchmen with Regina King? The opening scene, right? That's my community. Like that shit really actually happened. And the city has never done right by the Black folks that live in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So, you know, when Trump came, we ended up doing our Juneteenth. We were running around trying to figure out what the hell we were going to do. We were trying to block the streets to keep Donald Trump and Mike Pence from coming and taking a picture of our community's tombstone, right, which is a memorial of all the businesses and the atrocity that took place in 1921. So, and my family's business is actually on this memorial. So, the greatest thing, I would say one of the best things about that particular Juneteenth was not that Trump was coming. We showed complete resilience, but the fact that we had white allies donate funds and donate time to help us put our Black Lives Matter mural on the historic Black Wall Street, right? That what other better place to put it in America, right? Besides in Washington, D.C., in the original Black Wall Street, where over 300 Black people were massacred and buried in mass graves, right? All of our businesses burned down to the ground. Like they're looking for mass graves today. I'm actually a part of a documentary that talks about these mass graves. Today, the city legally, right? Like they used to legally keep Black people from getting in the pools and legally keep Black people from voting and legally enslaved Black people. They legally removed the sign Black Lives Matter from the historic Greenwood Avenue, Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma. They literally scraped that shit off the ground at 4:00 this morning in the dark, right? Embarrassed to be confronted by, reporters and shit and national press. It's an outrage. And it's the reason why it's an outrage is because we got people like Jamarian Robinson, who was shot 76 fucking times in Atlanta, Georgia, with no national press, no big national press. And then as of just yesterday, right, we have a brother in Texas who goes into a convenience store, sees a couple engaged in a physical domestic dispute. He tries to break them up, right? He's trying to be the hero there. He ended up getting his ass shot.
Who shot him?
That's the reason why we're all screaming Black Lives Matter.
Yeah, the police did.
Hot ass mess.
I mean, that was heavy, and that was a lot. It was a lot, but it's always a lot happening in our community. So, what are we gonna do?
I mean, here's the thing, and this ain't no shade to like Black Lives Matter, anything. Like I put a status up a while ago. Like I don't give a damn where y'all paint Black Lives Matter or none. I don't care. Like the whatever tribute y'all want to put up publicly to express the fact that now Black Lives Matter. That shit don't matter until y'all actually show us. Right. It don't matter.
That's good.
I don't give a damn. You can paint that shit over the whole Route 66. It don't matter if Black people are still being murdered along the roads, especially in the Bible Belt. Like,
let me just hold up. I just want to be really clear.
Right.
Why this shit matters to me.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why this shit matters to me is the way that they went about doing it.
Yeah.
Because there was a ton of churches and community organizations that lent their walls to have Black Lives Matter murals painted there. There were several churches in the city that had Black Lives Matter written on their had Black Lives Matter painted in their parking lots.
Mm-hmm.
And all of that is great. I'm happy that these private entities are doing that. But the reason why I'm pissed is because it was a legal thing that happened.
Yeah.
It's legal sanctioned injustice that's taking place in 2020. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
And not only is it just just anywhere, we're talking about Black Wall Street. Next year, we're about to have the centennial, right? We're looking to have celebrities come in. We're looking to hopefully have Barack Obama be the keynote speaker at the BOK Center where Trump had his damn COVID rally, right? So that's the reason why I'm upset. It's because this shit is happening legally.
Yeah. And rightfully so. Like all of it is happening legally. Like this is legal lynching, by the police and by the government.
Yeah.
And so it's like when that shit does happen, I think we continuously have conversations about what are we gonna do? Because it keeps happening every week, every Monday we get on this show, and over the weekend another Black person has been shot, killed by police, shot and killed in the streets, whomever. So this is like that's why I always want to talk solutions. Like, what are we gonna do? Because they don't respect our lives, so they're not gonna respect anything that's painted on the streets.
So I know I'm talking a lot today. I want to say why I'm happy that Councilman Antonio Brown is here today. Because a few days ago, it might have been last week, I sent a message to him after one of the rallies or the marches here.
The march on Friday.
And I said, how is it possible that, because I thought one of the solutions was going to be, okay, well, if we have a whole bunch of damn Black people in power, then the shit is going to stop, or it's going to come to some sort of halt. That's what I was hoping. I'm like, I'm trying to get to the next promised land. Me and my man, we uproot and we come here because we're looking we're running from racism. That's what we're trying to flee. We're trying to flee racism.
Ain't nowhere to hide. Ain't nowhere to hide.
And that's the reason why my family left Louisiana to Oklahoma, to the Black Wall Street, because they were fleeing racism, hoping that they would be able to live freely. But no, that's not.
But it's systemic, and I think it speaks to it wasn't just the fact that it was Black Lives Matter painted on the Black Wall Street. It was the fact that almost 100 years ago, they stole those Black lives. They devalue Black lives, and that continues to happen. And so in this conversation, when we talk about solutions, one of the things we were focusing on today is how do we get youth and young adults involved, because they're just as sick of this shit. Like, that's why we're seeing that, we ain't our ancestors type of things. And I was like, I don't know what ancestors y'all talking about, because my great grandfather died for this. Like, y'all ain't dying for nothing. Like, there were people that went through atrocities and that are still living through that trauma. With all that being said, we know that this is systemic oppression that is happening at the cause and root of racism. How do we start to dismantle it? And I think that, Councilman Brown, I know you haven't had a chance to chime in, but brother, I would like for you to at least kind of start us off with some of the resolutions and just some of the work that you've been putting forward to really wake us up, like wake people up for real.
Right. And hold on, before you give those answers, like, can you just kind of lay out like how Atlanta is set up and how it's, I would say, what politically dominated by people that look like us, yet we're still having problems here.
Yeah. So you brought up something interesting that I just really spoke about today on Twitter this morning. I talked about how there is an establishment of Black elites, Black and white elites in the city of Atlanta that have been perpetuating this facade of a Black Mecca. Ooh. And they've not just done it locally, they've created this national kind of perception of what Atlanta is to the world, because, of course, the late Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. derived from the very communities in which I represent now. And it's such a facade, but they have been perpetuating it for so long and making the Black people in Atlanta believe that we live in a Black Mecca, and that this Black Mecca in which we live in is a system that's thriving for all Black people. And the reality, it's not. It's a system that was created by Maynard Jackson, that was established on really the airport. It was a system that was established by the airport to create minority participation in the airport. The problem is the only people that benefited from it were the people closest to his administration, or the people that were his friends or associates, or people that had access to individuals like the late Maynard Jackson and his administration that could benefit. And those people still to this day are benefiting from that very system. And not only do they benefit from it, but they've been charged with the responsibility of protecting this facade. So these are the same people that every day you see, like your Killer Mikes, like your TIs, like your Mayor Bottoms, like, you know, folks that are derivatives of the what we call the establishment within Atlanta, that continue to, in my opinion, mislead the people into believing that we are operating in conditions that really don't exist. There is no secret sauce to, you know, getting in and taking advantage of the opportunities, because the reality is, if you are not born and bred in this establishment, the likelihood of you being inducted into it or being a part of it is very slim to none, which is why when I ran for city council, the whole establishment opposed me, because I'm not born and bred in Atlanta. And their thought is that rightfully I should not be a city council person. You know, I should not be given the ability to represent a constituency of individuals, especially poor Black people, when I'm not even from here and I didn't go to school here. So I wanted to touch on that because I think it's important, because you said you picked up and you moved here with your partner, just like many other people in this transient ass city.
Yeah.
And they've picked up and moved here to this false pretense and these false expectations that have been laid out for 40 years in this city. And people don't even know about the great bargain deal that was established. And this was established under Andy Young, where he told white people, you can have business, give us government. And that was the beginning of the downfall of this city, because you can't have white people controlling businesses in a majority Democratic, progressive Black city, right? Because there's a disconnect there, because you're going to miss out on the working middle class of people in this city and the poor people in this city that have been poor in this city their entire lives. That will never get an opportunity to come out of poverty. Less than a few % of them ever make it out of the environments and conditions in which they're born into.
Hold on real quick. I got two questions. To touch back on when you called out Killer Mike and T.I. and, you know, and Mayor Bottoms, when we talk about this Black bourgeoisie and the influence that they have, how can we, similar to Jason's question earlier, how can we really convey the message that, yeah, these people have, like, you know, a following and they're popular, and so naturally people are going to flock to them and follow what they say. But how can we really push the message that, you know, maybe we shouldn't be following these goddamn people because they leading us into, you know, the darkness? And then another question is, how is Atlanta, the Atlanta politics and this facade that Black people are doing well, because it's the same thing here in Chicago, how does that translate nationally and in national politics? And how can we attack that? How can we push that message in that the same shit is happening everywhere?
that would mean we would have to admit that we too play a role in this systemic system.
Yeah.
Because who benefits from it? It goes back to the conversation of the Boast and Washington, when it was like, well, no, let's support the working class, right? Let's make sure that people have trades, and if they want to live just a normal, decent life, that's okay. If they don't want to have the picket fence and the large house and the fancy car and all of that, like they just want a very simple life. So how can we support them? But the Black elite never wanted that, because they wanted the piece of the American dream, the American pie, the reparations that were owed to Black people, and they kept it for themselves. And so, like, we have to be willing to admit that, but we're not going to ever want to admit that, especially in the South.
Yeah.
It starts with us.
It does.
And I preached about this morning. It's so easy for us to point out the issues, the problems in our communities. No matter where you're from, Chicago, Philly, Atlanta, Texas, it doesn't matter where you're from. It's so easy to talk about the problems. This city has an unfortunate issue with talking about the problems and planning around the problems. We will plan until we are blue in the face, and we will come up with the most beautiful plans you have ever fucking seen in your life. Those plans would look amazing. The problem, we struggle with the area of execution.
Right.
That's right.
Something from the place of a plan and moving it into something that's realistically tangible. But like Jason said, it starts with us. Yeah. Because until we can own up to our issues and to the fact that we too have been condoning this for 40 years, and no one's been really talking about it until now. Like, I'm the first council member to sit here and call out the establishment, the Black establishment, for keeping the communities in which I represent poor.
Right.
Folks have been poor.
So how you been doing that, Councilman Brown? Like, give us some specifics around how you been putting them on blast.
Social media. I call them out on social media. I call them out on public comment. I call them out in full council meetings. I call them out in committee meetings. I will call your ass out with the quickness, because the reality is, and you can hate. I had a council member call me and say to me, Councilmember Brown, I just want you to know I hate you and all of council hates you. And I was like, wow, that's interesting. I was like, it's so unfortunate that you feel that way, but it ain't gonna stop me from calling y'all out on y'all bullshit. Because the reality is, until we wake up and we start holding our elected officials accountable, ain't shit gonna change.
We're allowed to do that too.
Right.
Yes.
That's all right.
So that's why the system was created, for us to do that. And that's the hypocrisy in all of this, especially in Atlanta, that you had a system designed by a Black mayor that failed us. And it failed us from the beginning, because at the start of Atlanta having the first Black mayor and the first Black police chief came the Atlanta missing and murdered children that were over 30 children. The majority of them were Black boys. We don't talk about that in Atlanta. Atlanta isn't even pushing for justice for them. So why are we shocked that Corey Turner hasn't received justice?
So Councilman Antonio brought up a really good point that Black folks don't do enough of, right? Had Harriet Tubman been alive today, I mean, who knows what kind of disruption she would have been causing. I'm sure she would have been calling every Negro that.
I don't know.
Every Negro out, because she was the type of. Hold up, I'm not done yet. Okay. She was the type of sister, like Queen, that she was like Queen Nzinga, right? Like there was no compromise whatsoever. Even if you're a Black person, if you're an elected official, your ass needs to be held accountable. And that's the reason why the Black Wall Street Times rose to prominence, because we was holding people accountable. Now, I want to be honest here, because I think that every Black person that's watching this shit and every Black person that ever sees it needs to be honest. We got to be honest with ourselves. We do not hold Black people accountable enough. And the reason why we don't do that is because, one, we've been conditioned to, and two, we have racial racial trauma, right? And we're like, well, shit, they already Black, so we already know, like, you know, if I call them out, I mean, then that's just going to give white people enough reason to call them out. We got to cut that shit out. Like the first time I ever went off on a black person was in the Black Wall Street Times, and that was on Candace Owens. That shit had over 250,000 views, right? Over 250,000 views. Black people that do wrong by other black people, they need to be
called out. And I do believe that people are calling them out.
Can I jump in real quick? Because first of all, I am repping my Harriet Tubman shirt today. Like, we out. That's the thing. I mean, the thing that bothers me, and this goes back to that comment, the comments that people make, like, we are not our ancestors. Right. Black people are not built the same that they were back in the day. And so it makes me wonder, it's like, where are the modern day Harriet Tubmans? Where are the modern day Marcus Garveys? Where are the modern day, for real, abolitionists, the revolutionaries? Where are they? Because we not built the same. Like, I'm sitting here, I ain't gonna lie, I'm scared to goddamn go to jail. If I get in a demonstration, they try to take my ass to jail, and somebody try to take my goodies, they might just get them. Like, I'm 5'11", I'm a big girl, but I'm soft as fuck. They might just get my goodies. I'm scared to go to jail for that reason. I don't want my virginity taken in jail. So it's like, we not built the same, but our ancestors, they had it was literally a matter of life and death.
Well, they knew
what they were fighting for. But Neo, like you said, we've been conditioned and complacent, thinking that we have some sense of freedom, and that's why we're not built the same. And so how do we get people to that level of being built strong so that we can fight this shit? Because we are not free. Ain't nothing different.
Reprogramming. You have to reprogram the people's minds. It's not that you're not built that way, because you are built that way. God created us with divinity. Right. We are divine human beings, especially melanin beings. I mean, we are divine in every aspect. And the reality is that until we make the conscious choice to reprogram our minds, to reprogram how we see the world. See, it's easier for me, and I can admit this, because I didn't grow up in a political environment. I grew up Jehovah's Witness. So I didn't grow up around Democrats and Republicans. So when I step into a political space and you tell me you're a Republican or you're a Democrat, that shit don't mean nothing to me. Right, I don't give a damn what political party you affiliated with. What I care about is the interests of the people. And what I see in our Black culture, because it's bigger than politics. Right. It's Black culture. What I see in Black culture is us operating through this conservancy, where we're attempting to conserve the Black culture through all means necessary, even to the detriment of our own people. We would preserve Black culture. And the reality is that shit needs to be dismantled too, right along with every fucking thing else. We need to be dismantling that shit and rebuilding it back up to be a reflection of what God intended it to be. And this is one more other thing I want to say. You know, we've been programmed to believe, as the people that vote our elected officials into office, we've been programmed to believe that we deserve a seat at the table. And that bothers the shit out of me, because the reality is, as an elected official, we are the fucking table, and our elected officials are being invited to have a seat. That is the reality in which we should be operating from. But it's going to take people waking the hell up and realizing their power, or something detrimental happening to them in their lives that forces them to wake up to realize that they possess the power to elect who they choose to represent them within local, federal, and state government.
So can we just repeat that line? So you said that we are the table, right? And they just have a damn seat. That shit right there should be on t-shirts everywhere. Yes. Black people
uprising.
That is a proverb right there to live by. Yes. Black folks all over the damn country, all over the diaspora.
Yeah, shout out to the People's Uprising, who is definitely going to go ahead and trademark that shirt. I just wanted to put that public service announcement out there. And Antonio, to your point, Tanisha and I both are reading Powernomics. It's a dynamic book, and I'm disappointed in the fact that these Black activists and intellectuals put their thoughts together and say by 2005 we should have Black capital and wealth enough to build out the things that we're sitting here talking about right now. And so one of the things that it mentions is that as Black citizens, we have a broad sense of community. We don't have a focused sense of community. And when they say it's focused sense, we're not investing in the Black communities. Our dollars are not staying in the Black communities. We will adamantly support white-led companies that could say Black lives don't matter, Black women ain't shit, we don't care about these missing and murdered Black children. It does not matter to us. And we still would say, well, Chick-fil-A is a Christian-based, franchise, and we have some Black people that own it. So let's continue to give them millions of the Black dollar. And I'm stating that because we don't want to invest we don't truly want to invest in Blackness. We want to invest in the hype. And the hype is what we see with the bourgeoisie of Atlanta. And someone made a comment about all the famous, entertainers that live here. What are we holding them accountable to do? Right. What are they doing other than throwing these parties and filming all over our city and using our heritage and our history as a mockery for people to be entertained? But neither here nor there.
But
how are we holding them accountable?
Why would they do anything different? We've allowed it to go on for 40 years in this fucking city. If I'm selling drugs in this city for 40 years, why would I stop? Why would, if I'm taking advantage, if I'm getting wealthy off of the back of Black poor people, why would I stop? Why like, no one's saying anything to me. Well, what's the point? I could continue to do this because, listen, at the end of the day, I'm thriving. I am a part of that, percentage of Black wealthy people, and I'm comfortable. And I'm good. I'm sorry, other Black people. Y'all grew up in English Avenue, Vine City, Bankhead, and y'all don't have shit. I'm sorry. We'll try to help y'all. We'll bring some white people over there to gentrify your area to see if some of y'all can stay. But the reality is, I'm good. And I've had these conversations with Black developers in this city who have said to me, "We're good. We're good over here. Why should I jeopardize my wealth for some crackhead ass families that don't want to better their lives?" I've had Black developers tell me that. Why would I risk my wealth for them? They could have come out of those conditions. And then I have to educate them on the reality of classism, on the reality of the fact that folks that grow up in these environments and conditions aren't given a choice. These folks come into these conditions, they're born into these conditions. And when you, unfortunately, don't provide access to healthcare, to housing, to workforce development,
high quality education,
what do you expect? They talk about Black on Black crime. What do you expect? You're herding cattle in one area in which you're forcing them to survive.
That's good.
So y'all, check this comment out from Cheryl on the screen. She says, "How do you know they're not doing anything? The elite." She just wants to know
their actions.
How do you know they're not doing shit?
I was writing that. I saw that comment too.
They're doing
they
things.
are.
They're doing the bare minimum. They are doing what they've been doing for the last 40 years, which is continuing to dangle a carrot in Black people's faces, saying, "Oh, we have this for you guys. We have this program for you guys. I hope it's enough for you guys to make it out of poverty. If not, good luck. We'll come back around in another 10 years and we'll give you something new that may be able to help you this time."
Right.
So they are doing things, but they're doing the bare minimum. No one in this city has run it progressively enough to really challenge the status quo and the complacent leadership that's been in place. And really, because listen, this is not a hard fucking job. You create a workforce development program through a workforce development bond. You build out an affordable housing bond. You create opportunities for middle working class Americans to live and work in the city of Atlanta. You provide them access to good transportation. It doesn't even have to be fucking great transportation, but good transportation to get them reliably to and from work. Little things that go so far that we don't focus on because our focus is white people. You take business, we take government.
Say that.
And we don't need to mix. You do your thing. You take all the money from our communities. You do your thing, give us some of it, and we'll do our thing, and we'll continue to lead the city.
The Black elite has also left us with our counterparts controlling business, which influences education. Because how are we paying for public education in Atlanta? How are we paying for public services that go out to our people who still are not getting them? My sister's best friend was killed. It's been 2 weeks now when the storm hit and the tree in their community fell. And the residents have been saying, well, we've been calling about this tree and calling public works, calling the district that is led by someone who looks like us, that is a part of the Black elite that did not do anything. That could have been avoided. Look at the Atlanta cheating scandal. Look at Atlanta public schools. Biggest scandal in the nation. It happened right here in Atlanta
all those city
because
councilors
who is advocating for the poor Black children? You have an organization, Atlanta Thrive, right now that is still demanding equity in Atlanta public schools. They create a position. And I used to be a district administrator in Atlanta. They're good at programs and plans that look good and dangle the carrot, but still in 2020, Black parents in Atlanta are still demanding equity.
Right. So I want to bring up the fact, as Black people, we have a long damn list of atrocities, right, that happened to us. And so I just wanted to bring to the table, and I learned this from Jason and Councilman Brown. You can talk a little bit about it, about, you know, these Black kids that's the first thing I noticed when I came to Atlanta was all of the Black kids that were selling water bottles all throughout the city, right? And then the city council actually voted to have these kids arrested if they were seen out selling these water bottles. And the majority of the city council is Black. Like, I don't understand where the hell that just bothered the fuck out of me when I got here.
Yeah, well, it's been happening. I mean, it's been happening.
Like, how could Black people vote for incarcerating Black children? Like, damn.
Well, you have to remember, you know, the people that are representing, you know, the people. You know, just because you're Black doesn't mean that you support the same policies that uplift Black poor communities. I mean, I've had council members tell me, you know, I don't want no more shelters in my district. I don't want Black poor people in my district. You know, I've had council members tell me that. So, you know, the reality is that if we're going to affect change, whether it's in Atlanta, whether it's in Philadelphia, or it's in Chicago, wherever it is, what has to happen is the people have to rise up. And I don't mean just rise up in the street and march down the street with your fists in the air talking about Black Lives Matter. I don't give a damn about that. That shit ain't changing shit in this country. What's changing shit is policy.
Right.
So how do we ensure we're at the table when those policy decisions are being made? Because Jason can tell you, had I not been on council, I mean, granted, I've gone through a lot of shit because of this, but had I not been on council, half of the shit that's been put in place to lift up Black poor communities would have never happened, because I'm a lot of times the only council member outside of a few others that are even advocating for it. And because I'm the only council member that actually endured it, meaning I grew up in poverty, I grew up on the welfare system, my parents were incarcerated, I know what it's like to struggle, I know what it's like to drop out of high school and have to take a full-time job just to make sure food is on the table for your family. I've experienced it. We need more elected officials that have experienced hardship, that understand it, not from reading it in a book, not from hearing about it on the news, but people that have actually been through things. Because I can't knock other council members who grew up and may have grew up in privilege and weren't exposed to these type of environments and conditions to understand and relate to the issues I'm speaking on. I can't set that expectation because that's an unrealistic expectation. That's good.
We can't change people. People have to choose to want to change.
That's good.
And that's where we make mistakes. We think Oh, because we've been through hardship, because we've been through shit, people have to understand, and their policy should be a reflection of their understanding of what I've been through. Wrong. Niggas don't have to give you shit. Ain't nobody coming to save us. Nobody.
That's
That's
good.
good.
So you
Man.
need to save yourself. You need to educate yourself. You need to empower yourself. You need to register to vote. You need to get involved in your local municipality. You need to get involved with your neighborhood associations, who your mayor is, all of that.
That's good.
That's good.
So
So go ahead, T. Go ahead.
if we can because to touch on like the topic of conversation today, and is reimagining public safety. And when I think about public safety in its entirety, it's not just, police brutality or, police reform. It's when we think about Trump told the Proud Boys to stand by.
Mm.
And so, depending on what happens with the election, we can be on the verge of a race war, of another civil war. And so when we talk about public safety for Black people at this point, what does that look like? What do we need to do to get ready and stand by? Because some shit is about to hit the fan.
I think it's still
a race war is intentional.
Yeah, definitely intentional.
This is by design.
Yeah.
The race war is just a matter of time, because they know if they can ignite a race war, you can segregate the people. And if you segregate the people and they don't come together, then they never realize their true power to affect change. Mm-hmm. That's the whole premise of the construct in which we currently exist within, is that keep the people fighting amongst themselves by labeling them. Call them gay, call them lesbian, call them Black, call them white, call them heterosexual, homosexual. Label them, because if you can label them, you institute an identifier that separates me from you. Mm-hmm. And if I can identify a separator between us, then now I'm looking at you different. And I'm not looking at you as the same human being that God created.
That's good. That's good.
You preaching today.
That's good. I was going to say, too, guys, it's been a race war going on. As long as police brutality has been happening, one of the things that pissed me off was Trump's, demand for law and order, and his call to action being law and order. And we know what that term means, especially for white supremacists who take it as a license to kill Black people openly. That doesn't mean that they hadn't been doing it. And so when we look at this race war and the things that are happening, who is going to be impacted by this the most? And we all know this. It's going to be those poor Blacks, whether they are those who frequent the strip clubs, the liquor stores, those in our corners, communities that are deprived, that don't have the same means to survive in regards to healthcare. They are the ones that are going to be impacted by what's happening with police brutality, because there's a common thread with a lot of these families that are victims of police brutality. And we have to address that stigma too, because that is what keeps the Black elite from feeling like they are exempt from these atrocities, because they're not happening to them. They're happening to us.
Right. So when we talk about that segregation, intentional segregation within the Black communities, because personally, going back to Black Lives Matter, again, a lot of people, there have been a lot of conversations in which the organization itself, the values doesn't necessarily reflect the needs and the values and hopefully the agenda of the Black community. So the Black Lives Matter organization is different from the liberation for Black lives, that movement. And so when we talk about that in and of itself is segregation, because when you look at all the people aligned with Black Lives Matter organization, that's a whole goddamn force. And so how do we unite? How do we again have these conversations, have these house meetings, and create these strategies that unite these groups within our communities that are separate? Because we need everybody on deck. How do we do it, y'all? Because we need it.
I think that Atlanta's doing it through the People's Uprising. I think that exactly what you just said is, it's a movement within itself. It's not just the marches and the protests, but the call to action with policy changes. Neo and I serve on the public administration committee, and, everybody can go ahead and save the date for this. I'm gonna throw it out there for October 27th, when we're going to have a forum talking about just this, like the actions that people need to take, what needs to be done, how are we doing this, What role do you play specifically between the ages of 18 to 45? Because that's going to be the generation that has been afflicted the most by the law. And how can we change these things so that we don't have to keep seeing this when we get, up in age? I'll say that. I won't say my age.
So how did the people's up? Because I think one of the problems is that people think that when you creating a movement, you have to create this whole organization. Like in Chicago, we got 5,000 million nonprofit organizations that ain't doing a damn thing. And
True.
so how did the people's uprising come about? I think it will be helpful for people to have a step by step of how we develop these groups and push these movements.
So I created the People's Uprising at the very, it was right after Rayshard Brooks was killed. And I created it as a way, like Jason spoke about, to bring the people together. Because one thing that I realized about Atlanta, especially Atlanta politics, was that folks operated in silos, and they operated in silos because they cared more about their ego and their pride. They cared more about being acknowledged and
that's good,
being awarded for the fact that they accomplished something than they did about the betterment of the people. So I said, you know what? Let's bring together an organization that's nonpartisan, non-political, that will bring everyday people together that wasn't influenced by elected officials that felt like they had something to prove. But these were everyday people like Jason, who fights every day for his communities to affect change and ensure that the least of these are at the forefront of these conversations. And literally, I went into my network and I started identifying people that I saw that were engaged and involved in community. And I reached out and I said, hey, you should be a part of this. And let me tell you how powerful this has been. This shit is bigger than me. People don't even really know I created the organization, because guess what? I didn't need to chair the fucking organization because it wasn't about me. It wasn't about nothing that I personally was able to do that someone else couldn't do, which is why we had the People's Uprising. No, it was about the people at the end of the day. And I think that's where we have to get back to. We have to get back to the people, because if we don't, y'all think Trump, because I personally have a different opinion about Trump than a lot of people do.
Wait, lay it out real quick.
Well, I appreciate Trump.
Do people need to sit down for this?
No, I appreciate his rhetoric, right? I appreciate him being real about where he stands and how he feels. I'm tired of the sugar-coated ass bullshit from the Democratic Party trying to tell me what I need, what I want to hear. No, tell me how you really fucking feel. Because there's some racist ass Democrats in this fucking country. And if people don't know, history repeats itself. The Democrats were Republicans before they transitioned into being Democrats when it was popular and common for them. So the reality is, I appreciate his rhetoric. And through his rhetoric, we've had some real ass conversations that we would have never had under the direction of this Hillary Rodham Clinton.
Right. You right. Right. It's absolutely true. So, like at the debate when Trump called Biden out on his shit, everything that Trump said about Biden was true, right? And so I looked over at Biden like, dude, are you gonna come clean about your bullshit that you've done to black folks? That would have been a big moment if he would have said, you're absolutely right, Trump, and I want to look in the camera and I'm gonna apologize to Black America. I have evolved. That was a moment he missed. And I'm sick of that shit.
Yeah, but then the black people around him, are they holding him accountable to say that? Because again, white liberals are looking for the black elite. That's what they are, a part of their system. Malcolm told us about this, y'all. We already know this. Malcolm told us about this. Stokely Carmichael lost his mind almost trying to tell us about this same shit, that the white liberals are fighting their counterparts. It's almost like, to be honest, they fighting over their slaves. And I'm just not saying that black people are slaves, but the disenfranchised, the poor, women. Like we know this. It spelled these things out. So we got to stay focused on making sure that we're not just educating the people and uncovering the atrocities, because a lot of people don't know that this shit is happening
Yeah,
because public education isn't teaching it. We don't
right.
have inclusive curriculum still. That's going to be another call to action in the end. But we have to continue to have these conversations to wake people up and truly educate them, because those of us who are, this is the dynamic, intentional separation. You have survival of the fittest, and then you have the miseducated versus the uneducated. And a
Yep.
lot of the black elite are miseducated because we are not in that number.
I
We
mean, are
are
they
the few.
miseducated or are they swayed by power? Because I mean, you see
Nah,
it's both. It's like it's similar to what Antonio said. Like they grew up in privilege, so they don't know the struggle. But even I've seen elected officials who grew up in the struggle and they've been so like romanticized by the power that they forgot where the fuck they came from, and so that's why they do the shit that they do. So it's not that they're necessarily miseducated. I think that's letting them off the hook. That's not holding them accountable, which has been problematic. They just don't give a fuck. Like they get these positions, they get these salaries. It's like all you gotta do is betray your people, betray the values and the morals and the intentions that you came with originally, and we'll give you the bag. And the bag is more important.
Some of the most educated, ignorant people in my life.
Yeah, they're
when it
indoctrinated
comes
by the system.
to what we deal with every day, what we fight with every day.
Right.
And I can't judge them based on their misinformation or being ill-informed, because like we talked about earlier, they never experienced it. They don't know what it's like to fucking have to live off of ramen noodles or fucking not have, struggling on WIC just to buy milk and cereal. They never experienced that.
Yeah.
How can you expect them to understand or relate to something they never experienced? And even that, to me, is still an issue, because I believe, like, if you didn't come out of these conditions and you didn't experience these things, at least educate yourself on those experiences and conditions. Go out into the communities. How many people from the Gold Dome actually goes into Vine City, Bankhead, and English Avenue to understand that don't live in the area, live in some other city in Georgia far out? How many of them that are passing laws in this state have gone into these communities to see what it's like?
If I can just jump in, because one of the comments, Belinda said that it's still a form of miseducation. I don't agree with that. I think that there's miseducation, which is what's happening in our traditional school system. There's willful ignorance, which is people turning a blind eye to the situation. Because I mean, at the end of the day, common sense ain't that damn common, but you ain't that damn stupid not to see what's going on in our communities. So that's being willfully ignorant.
Oh yeah,
turn the blind eye so that you won't have to address these issues. So no, that's not being miseducated. That's being willfully ignorant.
Right.
So we have to
Jason said, they see it. They don't care.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And they don't have any experience in it, and they are also protected from it. A lot of them, they don't go to public schools, so they're not seeing it. They don't have a connection to it. They have a connection to it because of their third cousins and them that grew up in the hood. Because I could be that third cousin. Like, oh, they're a little hood and they grew up in Atlanta and they didn't go to the Christian Academy, or, the schools where, the black elite send their children, because it's not the traditional public schools. And if they are traditional public schools like Beecher Hills or West Manor, they're in well-kept black communities where only their children go, and they don't have to entangle with the other children from the hood. And so that is a reality. I think that it's a combination of both, but I do know that we have too many black elite that are educated and from places like Chicago, Atlanta, that aren't doing anything. What are their programs? What are their initiatives? What are the policies that they're supporting to make sure that the change in poor black communities is happening? And that is why I made that comment in regards to being the battle between the miseducated and the uneducated, because the uneducated don't even realize that those people, those activists, those people like us in the middle are advocating for them, and they don't know because they're in a state of generational poverty and etc., where they're stuck. So that's my thought.
And you know what? It's the saddest thing is that, you know, when somebody made the comment earlier about history repeating itself,
Oh
this is
yeah,
modern day slavery all over again. These people are making their salaries and getting their power off the backs of black people because our tax dollars are, you know, whether you
yeah,
work at a minimum wage job or if you middle income, we are paying your salaries. And if we don't pay your salaries, then you're not in office. This is modern day slavery. And they're
most
And
deaf.
not doing what they
and
need
there's
to
a
do for us.
generational disenfranchisement that continues to happen, not just in Atlanta but across this country. And you know that, in my opinion, that generational disenfranchisement occurs from limited access to information and education. You know, because the reality is that a lot of the folks that do grow up in poverty in this city, they don't have access to the information, to the programs. They don't understand. You talk to them about local city government, they're like, what the hell is that? What do you mean you're a councilman? Like, what do you do? Who do you represent? Like, how do you do it? They don't even comprehend what is transpiring in this city every day that's affecting their
that's
lives.
that's it though. That's the key. Neo was just saying, well, they should be learning this in school, but guys, we know we have to improve the teacher pipeline, especially during the pandemic where there's already a teacher crisis. Black teachers are fleeing the field because they're fearing for their lives for being pushed back into schools that are opening for face-to-face learning, and they have pre-existing conditions. So we're getting it on both sides, and I'm always going to advocate for education because education is the key, right, to your
Yeah.
true freedom. And how is this generation going to sustain the work that, you know, fellow activists like ourselves are doing if they don't even know about Tulsa, if they can't even identify black activists who have been doing this work and what were their plans, what were their downfalls? Because what we do when we teach Dr. King, we teach his successes, we don't teach his failures. And his failures is what drove him to have better relationships with other civil rights, other non-violent, other
Point.
pro-black activists, so that we could talk about the poor people's agenda, the poor people's campaign. So if we're going to improve voting and affordable housing and the policies that can truly protect black people, we got to start talking about reparations and how that looks and what that looks like. We have to start talking about education and investing in that. We have to start talking about the poor people's campaign because those are the black citizens in the hood that are most victimized by police brutality.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Hey,
I
you know, oh, I'm sorry.
no, go ahead. I think because we got 2 minutes left, so we want to start with our closing thoughts, and I think again, like I'm a very solutions oriented person, and so if we could talk about kind of where we go from here, then that'll be dope because people,
Yes.
we got like this. It's the time is coming, so we gotta get our shit together, y'all. So closing remarks and thoughts, and what we need to do from our perspective as activists.
Hey, you know what I was just thinking about before? I know there's only 2 minutes left. I was thinking about the reparations, and I was wondering, what if someone did a GoFundMe account to establish reparations in this country, and everyone in this country contributed like $5? Just think about this for 1 second. They said right now the total for reparations is $17.4 trillion. That's what it would take to be able to provide reparations to Black people in this country, right? And we continue to wait for the government to go to the Federal Reserve, to pass a law, to go to the Federal Reserve, and to provide us this $17 trillion. But what if we did it ourselves? Like, what if we built a platform that was a credited platform that people could trust and believe in, that was designed to fund reparations, and the people funded the campaign? And I'm just thinking
That's a
about
part
that
of it.
because even if we didn't get to $1 trillion, I'm just thinking the amount of people, both Black and white, in this country that would support a movement like that would be extremely substantial.
I mean, it sounds dope. I actually feel like it's a part of, y'all know, I keep talking about this book only because I've heard so many other activists, speak on it. Kim Jones at the March talked about this just recently in regards to a national plan to empower Black Americans. And when you think about reparations, we have to invest in educating our people and empowering our people and
That
getting
part.
them connected to the know. of what needs to happen for change. She also spoke on the Freedmen's Bureau. So if there are parents listening, if there are educators, especially who are listening, those who can influence policy development, those who are in educational leadership, the Freedmen's Bureau, Powernomics, there are plans out there that really all of us are doing, but we're not doing it collectively and together. And so when we invest in ourselves, then we can make change. But we have to be willing to put that $5 aside and say, I'm going to donate this to freedom schools, right? I just want to keep pressing this because this is how we can make change. Invest in the schools. Look up people, even in our own networks, our platform. We are all activists. Even Councilman Brown, like he started in doing that work because he came from that place. And so look into our networks. When you go on people's Facebook, because we know people do it, right? Look at who they're connected with and look at the work that they are doing. You will see all type of people that we're connected to that are doing the work. There may be families that want to invest in that school. There may be families that want to invest in a program that is helping people that are coming back into society from being arrested or incarcerated. So I could go on and on about the things that people are doing, but that's the first step. We can start doing the investment right now in the programs and initiatives right in our communities, on the ground doing the work, and then collectively say, hey, we're going to invest while we still hold the government through our bureau accountable for reparations. Okay, I'm sorry. That wasn't my closing remarks, but I did want to just press that because we can do that. I believe that we can do that.
We got to hit closing remarks, y'all, because we got a couple of other on the network. We got other shows on the network coming up. So
yeah, right. I will go ahead and give my closing remarks. Make sure you're registered to vote. Early voting is started in a lot of cities. Make sure your voter registration card is up to date. A lot of states have their deadlines coming up now to make sure that you're registered to vote by the November elections. And I don't want to tell anybody how to vote, but just know that your vote will have an impact on millions of Americans. And none of us are the same. We all have our different political beliefs. Some of us come from marginalized communities. Some of us come from wealthy families. But we're all in the same damn boat. Ain't nobody going anywhere. Make sure you get out and vote.
I could be very quick, y'all. I'm just going to push out our town hall this evening, kicking off Digital Inclusion Week. As you know, the digital divide is something that's real and it's impacting Black students. The town hall is called the Erasure of Black Students in the Digital Divide. It will be live on NPU's page as well as the Black Wall Street Times and also Atlanta. And lastly, if you save the date for October 27th, again, Neo and I's committee, Public Administration of the People's Uprising, and you can look that up, the People's Uprising Atlanta. We'll be continuing this conversation, and especially before voting on November 3rd. And that's going to be between 6 and 7:30 on those same platforms. So let's stay connected. Let's do the work.
Councilman Brown, what you got? It looked like you was over there writing a whole ass book.
No, I am so sorry. So my full council meeting, I'm late for it. It's already started. My closing remarks are: one, it's been such a pleasure, even conversing with you all. I've had an opportunity to, connect with Jason, but it's really been amazing. Just both speaking with you two and just really understanding the necessity of this platform. The only thing I would leave with is that, I'm just tired of people talking about the issues and talking about what needs to happen. And I'm ready to move into a place of action. And that's not just local action. That's a national coalition that's capable of organizing and galvanizing the people to affect change, whatever change that's necessary to move the people forward. And I believe that we have a rare opportunity right now in the current climate in which we exist within to truly be that change, where we can stop talking about it, we can hold our elected officials accountable, and we can demand the change that we want to see, not just in our city and state, but across this country. Because at the end of the day, we know that we have the power to put people in office. We know we have the power to ensure that the least of these are a part of the conversations especially when it comes to ensuring that they are being given every opportunity to move their lives forward. We have the power to affect those changes in that conversation. So we need to start doing it.
Yeah. I
Awesome.
mean, my only thing, y'all, is that if we're looking for the liberation and self-determination of Black people, we need to get on one agenda and one movement that is rebellious and resilient. That's all I got. Let's
Most
do
def.
it, like everybody said. So with that, y'all,
Take the census, y'all.
yes,
And don't be afraid to call out Black folks when they foul.
all skin folk ain't pimp,
Out.
we say it all the goddamn time. So
Pick up the book, Powernomics. All right,
yeah.
I'm done. You know, I'm gonna keep going to the
All
last
right,
second.
y'all. Let's thank Councilman Brown for being on. He got to get off to his civic duties as councilman in
That's
Atlanta.
right, my brother. Peace,
But,
man.
thank
you.
y'all so much for tuning in and talk that real shit. We'll be back next Monday talking more shit. In the meantime, y'all be good.
See y'all tonight at 6.
And fight the power. We out, y'all.
Power.
Wakanda.